Okay. Afternoon, everybody. How's it going? I know I'm the last presenter here between now and lunch, so I'm going to make this as entertaining as possible. I promise you. So this is the title of my presentation today, is How Latency Can Kill the Video Experience. I'm Jason Tebow, the Senior Director of Marketing Strategy for Limelight Networks. This is the alternate title, which is the real reason, what I'm going to discuss is the real reason why your online audiences are leaving. So why aren't they watching your videos? Just because it's not buffering, or are there other reasons? Now, of course, there are lots of reasons why online audiences or audiences in general leave, and presenters like myself have a list of them, as you can see here. But of course, I'm not going to give you a whole lot of these reasons today. I'm going to try to avoid slides like this in general. It's going to be lots of pictures, lots of big words, lots of things to make you laugh. Now, most of the time when we talk about video experiences, we talk about this. We talk about video buffering, it's not loading correctly, the time to first byte is too slow. That's not what I'm suggesting is why people leave video experiences. What I'm suggesting is that there's other types of latency, there's other reasons why users abandon video experiences. In a sense, it's like there's usually one answer, but in this case, it's no longer the answer that everybody's really thinking about. It's all these other answers that are the problem. So what we're going to do in this presentation is we're going to really investigate this. We're going to try to figure out why people leave video, why they don't watch video, why video comes on a website and they abandon it anyway, even though the video is loading and playing just fine. In essence, it leaves your digital experience sort of dead in the water, right? It's like a chalk outline. You've done all this hard work to build this great thing and to bring all these people to your website, and you've got this video, and all of a sudden, people are abandoning it left, right, and center. And so that's what we're going to look at today. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the reasons why people are not leaving your video experience. So the first reason is it's not because they're bored, right? That's not the reason. They're not leaving because they're distracted. That's not another reason. They're not leaving because they have something better to do. They're leaving for other reasons. Something is happening that's forcing them to abandon your video experiences that has nothing to do with how well your video is playing, and that's latency. So latency is really sort of any delay in the digital experience that's part of your video. So when we talk about a digital experience, that's all the stuff that's around, right? It's all the things that are surrounding. And when latency happens, this is what you're asking your users to do. You're asking them to wait. And users don't like to wait, right? We have lots of stats and lots of information about how quickly users will abandon sites if it increases from 1 second to 3 seconds to 5 seconds. When you ask your users to wait, they're going to leave. What I want to suggest is that the real reason that people leave video experiences is not just because the video is not playing well, it's because of all the surrounding stuff around the video. It's everything that enables the video. It's that digital experience, your website, your mobile application. Remember that your video is not just playing itself, it's part of an experience. And it's that experience that's suffering from latency, which is causing people to leave in the first place. Now, one way to look at it is we tend to measure video and video experiences using video metrics, right? So we look at, did the video buffer? How many times did it switch bit rates? Did it start quickly? How many people abandoned it in the first 10 seconds or 15 seconds? But that's only looking at one piece of the pie. What I want you to do in this presentation, at the end of this presentation, is I want you to have an idea of looking at the whole pie, of looking at video as just one part of a larger digital experience that you're trying to deliver. So just a little few stats on latency. I call latency the silent killer. And the reason I do this is because there are so many ways and places for latency to creep up in digital experiences that people don't really pay attention to what the impact is on the video experience itself. They're just so focused on video, video, video. My video is not playing correctly. It's just too many bit rate switching. My video experience isn't good. But that's really not the reason that people are abandoning the experience as a whole. It's because of all that other latency. And as you can see here, you get drop in traffic, you get an impact on revenue, and you get loss of sales. Latency has a measurable impact to the bottom line. Now what this creates is a really big, huge, scary monster, because latency can really creep up in all sorts of places until it overwhelms your digital experience. And soon what you're doing is you're not fighting your users anymore for watching video, you're fighting to keep them on your website in general. Okay. So here's the cool thing about this presentation. I only have 5 latencies to talk about. Why is that a good thing? Because if I'm a really horrible presenter, you only have to sit through 5 reasons of latency. So bear with me. So reason number one. Okay, I need the obligatory, isn't that cute, right? Our first type of latency is internet congestion. Now, You multiply that by 1 billion times and you have 1 billion people loading cat videos and cat pictures, and that creates internet congestion. Yeah, kind of and kind of not. I think internet congestion is more created by companies like this, right? Mass consumption of rich media bogs down the internet. And internet congestion can have a measurable impact to your digital experience, right? When there's lots of traffic out there on the internet and you're trying to deliver your videos through your website or your mobile applications, you have to pass through all that congestion. Now, the other thing about the internet congestion is the internet is constantly under siege. Every day there are attacks against websites and web properties that could have an ancillary effect on your own website. I'm going to give you an example of this. So in 2013, a company called Spamhaus, which they create lists of spammers. So basically they have these lists and anti-spam software subscribes to these lists so that when email comes in, if it matches one of these lists, they kick it as spam. So a company got listed on Spamhaus and they didn't like it. As a matter of fact, they were really upset about it. And so they decided, you know what? Spamhaus is not going to take us off the list. We're going to take Spamhaus down. So they launched a distributed denial of service attack. So this was the largest attack in recorded history. And what happened was this company didn't just go after Spamhaus. They went after the peering and the internet exchanges where Spamhaus connects with all these other companies. And what happened was a ripple effect. And soon, normal websites that had nothing to do with Spamhaus were being affected by this DDoS attack that reached up to about 310 gigabits per second of internet traffic. So you can see that internet congestion is not caused just by people watching cat videos or people watching Netflix. It's also caused by other events like this. The internet is really just a chaotic mess. So the question is sort of how do you get around that? How do you deal with that? Well, one of the ways is you've got to find a way to absorb all of that latency. You've got to find a way to absorb that congestion. And that will help you increase your time to first byte. And so the faster that you can get time to first byte, the faster that your digital experiences will load, the faster that your website will appear, the quicker that your users will get access to that video. Again, we're talking about all those latencies that affect the video experience. Internet congestion is the first one, it's the biggest one. So one of the easiest ways to get around that is to offload to a CDN. Obviously, I work for a CDN. There are lots of CDNs, but a CDN enables a company to push off the delivery of their traffic to a network that's capable of absorbing a lot of this internet congestion. So just think about that. That first reason is internet congestion, and it's all about offloading it to somebody who can absorb that. Reason number two. And I'm telling you, this presentation is going to go fairly quickly. I'm going to get you guys to lunch fast. You're going to be the first ones in line. So the second reason, the front end. So this is easy. The front end is your interface, right? It's the thing that your video appears in. It's your mobile application, your mobile website, your desktop website. It's where you're displaying that video and how they're accessing it. Under normal circumstances, the way a website loads kind of looks like this. It's all messed up, right? It's an uncompleted Rubik's Cube. Now, there are ways to mitigate this. There are ways to fix this, lots of ways. We can reduce the number of round trips. We can reorder requests. We can combine CSS. We can combine JavaScript. There's lots of technical answers to making your web interface load faster and better. We call that front-end optimization or front-end acceleration. And when it looks like this, when you get it all reordered and it's loading well, you end up with something like this. A lot of demonstrable, measurable impacts to why performance matters. So if you increase, according to Amazon, there's a 10% increase in revenue for every 1 second of performance. So that's just an example. But if you read these stats, there's a reason why the front end has to load quickly. Again, you want that experience to get to the user as fast as possible. And when it does, you'll have a much better chance of them actually watching that video that you're putting there in the first place. Now, of course, there's no silver bullet, right? Front-end optimization and fixing your front end, your interface, is not going to solve all of your problems. As a matter of fact, according to wine.com, and this is one of the largest wine retailers, is they combined front-end optimization with the CDN. And what they saw was a 45% increase in speed across all browsers. So whether they were mobile browsers or desktop browsers, they saw a measurable increase by combining two kinds of fixes. One was fixing that interface, and the other was that CDN for offloading through that internet congestion. So this is kind of, I want you to start thinking about this as sort of a layered effect. It's not about just solving one problem, it's about solving multiple problems. Now, the last thing about the front end is you can't just build it and forget about it. You have to build it and test it. And the thing about testing that I can't say enough about is A/B testing. A/B testing enables you to figure out where are the pieces that should load first, what should load second, where should the video appear so that people will most often click on it and watch it. Remember, this is about what is undermining your video experience. Part of that is the front end and the way you've built the front end and how fast it's loading. So thinking about how do I solve this problem with my interface, how do I solve this problem with my digital experience, is about building the right digital experience to promote the right kind of clicks. Okay, number 3. I'm telling you, I'm moving through these. Mobile, right? I think we all agree that mobile's growing. So if you're not a believer, I'm going to make a believer out of you. So in 2012, right, Google published a study called the Multi-Screen World Study, and it was a great study, and it explored how people are using mobile devices now. This is a great graph that just shows how many people are using their devices every day as part of consuming digital content. So if you think that your video is only being watched on TV, on smart TVs, or you think your video is only being watched on PCs, you're wrong, right? Consumers are accessing your digital experience to get to your video on all their devices as part of every day. And as a matter of fact, about 4.4 hours of our media consumption time is spent in front of screens. And so it's really important to understand how much mobile is affecting the way people are consuming video content. And so when you start to think about, well, why aren't people watching my video from their smartphones? What is it about mobile that's undermining this experience? Well, it starts with the fact that people expect their speed on their mobile devices to be the same as on their desktop devices. They expect it to go fast. So think about those first 2 latencies, right? Internet congestion and front end. Both of them are all about speed of delivery, about getting it there as quickly as possible and avoiding all that congestion. That's because when you get to the mobile problem, users want it that way. They want everything super, super, super fast. Now, what I'm not talking about when I'm talking about mobile, though, is about getting the video there. I think getting the video to mobile is easy today. I think we've solved a lot of those problems with chunked HTTP delivery. We get the video. YouTube can get it there, CDNs can get it there, service providers can get it there. That's not the problem. The problem is this. The problem is all that stuff that's surrounding your video. What if right in the middle of this glass walls of foreign policy, that was a video? Would people watch it if it was your interface and your digital experience? Or would they leave it because it's loading too slowly? Now, the way that organizations have started to address the mobile problem is with responsive design. And responsive design is fairly simple. It's all about just reconfiguring your website, one website, to fit on mobile devices. So you go from a desktop to a tablet to a TV to a smartphone. It's still the same content. It's just reordering it and repositioning it so that it fits on the smaller screen. The problem with that, though, is that responsive design has a whole lot of baggage associated with it. It's got a lot of extra stuff that's responsible for responsive design. It's got extra CSS files, it's got extra JavaScript files. And the issue with mobile browsers is that they need to load all of that in order to run. So if they don't need certain CSS files or certain pieces of your website to run, they're going to load them anyway, which is going to slow down your website. So one thing that you have to start thinking about is, do I make a responsive design website for mobile, or do I make a mobile website that's targeted just at mobiles? Now, the other thing is we can bog down mobile websites by requiring them to make lots of extra server calls. This is very similar to front-end optimization, using fewer round trips, prioritizing the order of elements, and using right-size rich media. So there's a lot of similarity between solving the problems for mobile as there are for solving the problems for the front end. Remember that the front end is really your interface, so it's the digital experience regardless of device. You need to fix that with a lot of the same solutions. Okay, number 4. Now this one is a not so obvious one, storage, right? Where are you storing your digital assets? Where are you storing the images for your website? Where are you storing the JavaScripts? Where are you storing the CSS files? This is a really important question. Oops. Now for the most part, you're probably working with this guy. This is Tim. And you can't see it, but off to the side of his picture, Tim has a cat. So Tim lives with his cat. Tim solves all his problems with his cat. Tim is your hardware IT guy. He's the guy that fixes the issues with your storage. He swaps out hard drives, he increases RAID arrays. This is the guy you go to when you say, Tim, our digital experience has gotten so big, we need more storage. I'm on it, Chief. And he builds out more servers. Now, the problem with this is when you have an issue, let's say a server goes down, let's say a hard drive fails, well, where's Tim? You got to go find Tim. You're stuck with a bottleneck of Tim, who's probably in the break room eating a donut with his cat, right? But you got to go get him. You got to go solve that problem. So you got to go find him. Well, there's two ways to solve this storage issue. You can do it with Tim, which is do it yourself, and I'm going to show you how that works in a second, or you can go to the cloud. But it's really important to understand that solving the storage problem is a critical component of your digital experience. Where are you storing those assets? Are they thousands of miles away from your users, or are they close to your users in cloud? Now, doing it yourself, right, the problem with that is that there's lots of latency involved. So let's say that I make a request for something, and the storage that you have is in one data center in one place in the United States. Let's say that I'm here in London, and I access that website. All of those requests are going to go all the way back to that one location in the United States to get all those assets that have to come all the way back to load up that website. So I've got to go through that public internet, right? I've got to go through all that congestion. I've got to go through all the problems with accessing a disk drive and getting the things out of disk and getting them all the way back to me where I can build, my browser can build up the website. So here's what that kind of looks like, right? So we start off with the public internet, right? People load up files to different places. Let's say that we even have distributed storage. So I'm going to put them in all sorts of different places. Now, somewhere over here on the right, somebody's going to request content. Uh-oh, there's a cache miss. So they're even using a CDN, which is fantastic, right? They understand that in order to get the best possible experience, this customer knows that a CDN is going to get them through the internet congestion. But there's a cache miss. So on a cache miss, what happens is they have to go all the way back to where that origin is to get that content. And then they have to bring that all the way back. Think about a little math, okay? So let's say that you're using a CDN, and let's say you've got 5,000 objects that are served from cache, that are in cache each day. So let's say your cache hit ratio is 90%. So about 500 objects each time are going to get returned back from origin. So there's going to be a cache miss. It's going to go all the way back to origin, fetch the object, come all the way back. Now, let's say that you have a global audience. And let's say that that content is spread out on 6 pops. So now you've got 3,000 times that this object is going to go back to origin and get requested and come all the way back through that internet congestion. So just thinking about that, doing it yourself, right, having your objects stored really far away from your users, maybe in one place or 2 places, is not the most ideal solution for getting that to them very quickly. So that's a big ouch. So let's talk about the cloud. So what does the cloud get you? Well, the cloud gets you replication and distribution, right? So you're going to take your objects and you're going to spread them in the cloud, and the cloud is going to put them all over the place so that they're really close to the end user, right? They're much more closer because there's more copies of them. So let me show you how this works now. Same thing, we get content uploaded, but when it's uploaded, it's now replicated throughout the cloud. So now you've got objects everywhere. So now they're close to every user. When there's a request made, this time, when there's a cache miss, the object is going to be right there. It's going to be right next to the cache. So the cloud helps bring the objects closer to the end user. So instead of having those users wait, remember those 3,000 users in my math example that were having to wait for those objects to load from origin, now they have to wait just a fraction of that time in order to get those objects. And that interface and that everything loads up as quickly as possible. Okay. 5th one, last reason. See that? He couldn't stand the 5. All right, 5th one. So not all reasons are technologically focused. Not all reasons for latency are a result of technology. Remember that you're trying to get your content to your users as quickly as possible. You're trying to build a digital experience. You're changing it. You're modifying it. You're adding new menu options. You're creating new web pages. You're doing things that are promoting the way people are engaging with your content. Well, the problem with that is sometimes it looks like this to us. We're trying to do everything ourselves. We're trying to encode and transcode our videos. We're trying to improve performance. We're installing software to do X, Y, and Z. And the issue is that we're doing so many things by ourselves in so many different ways that it bogs down that ability for us to get things done quickly. I'm going to give you an example of this, because this is all about time. This is all about getting content to your users as quickly as possible. Okay, so here's a real-world example. This company, liveexercise.com, what they do is they make videos of people performing exercises that you can follow along. So you can do it in the comfort of your own home or in your hotel room, but regardless, they create video content. Now, they used to have a solution of do-it-yourself, and what they were doing was looking like this. It was looking like a person with 8 hands trying to do everything all by themselves. They were encoding, they were putting it to Amazon for storage, they were sending it to Wirecast and Wowza for live streaming, they were sending it to us for delivery, they were using software like Handbrake to get different formats created. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. Now, the key thing to notice, though, is up in the corner, right, is it took them about an hour to go from the camera to the consumer. And that's a lot of time. Those consumers are waiting for those videos. They want that content. And here they've got an hour, and it's costing them about $3,500 per month to get that done. So what did they do? They took a look at their workflows. They took a look at their processes, and they said, how can we make this better? How can we fix this? So they went to the cloud. And the cloud radically helped them reduce their processes. So when you look at that time now you went from an hour to 10 minutes. It only takes them 10 minutes to go from camera to end user. And not only that, but they saved about 20 or 30% of their cost. So it's a considerable benefit for them to look at their workflows and their processes and think about, how can we make this more efficient? How can we make this better? So I'm back to this. I'm back to the big scary monster, right? That's what video represents when you start thinking about latency. This is the latency monster. So we're just going to call him that. And so I want to remind you about that, because thinking about latency really brings up a lot of issues that we don't see obvious. They're not something that we can see right on the surface. We have to dig deep down inside, and when we dig deep into our digital experiences to find out the places where we're forcing our users to wait, that's when the monster rears its head. So let me explain this. So how does latency undermine video? So the first way is that internet congestion, right? So this is kind of like a recap. You've got internet congestion, the monster is just starting to get small, right? You get a CDN, you can solve that problem. But then the front end. So then you start thinking about, well, how do I make my digital experience better? How do I improve it so that it loads faster? And how do I get all these JavaScript and CSS files to work right? And how do I do front-end optimization? And all of a sudden, the monster's getting bigger. And then you start thinking about mobile. And how am I getting my stuff to mobile? And what is my mobile experience doing to my videos? Are people abandoning watching my videos because the mobile website is loading too slowly? So the monster's getting bigger. And finally, it turns into the latency monster when you start considering things like storage and workflows and everything else that really impact the digital experience itself, right? So just think about those 5 reasons: internet congestion, front end, mobile, storage, and workflows. And then all the other things that can creep up, which could be impacting the people watching your video in the first place. Now, the problem is you can't solve this by just attacking one thing. If you attack one thing, you're just being reactive, right? You're going to pull on a string, and you're going to realize that you've got a whole big ball of wax, a whole big knot that you've got to undo with all of these latency problems that have crept into your digital experiences. What you want to do is you want to be able to tame the latency monster. And in order to tame the latency monster, you have to start thinking about latency a little differently. You have to start thinking about it proactively instead of reactively. You have to start building a foundation where latency and performance become part of the way you create your digital experiences. So if you're getting ready to do a digital experience that's going to include video, you should start thinking about, okay, hold on, put the brakes on. What kind of latencies are going to creep into this that are going to impact our users' ability to watch video? Is it going to be something about the front end? Are we optimizing it? Is it going to be where we're storing our digital content? What are those things that you can create and solve at the beginning rather than at the end? Ultimately, what you need is a strategy. You need a strategy for performance that starts at the beginning of your digital experiences so that when you build them, they're automatically taking the latency out of the equation. And of course, when that happens, you can tame the latency monster. Now, when this happens, when you've got this all done, right, you get fireworks, you get lots of fist bumps because your users are happy, your management's happy, everybody's watching more video, you create lots of raving fans, you give the cookie to the monster, right? You satisfy the monster. And of course, the world is a better place because it's full of rainbows and unicorns. Thanks for the chuckle. And that's all I have today. So quick, easy, down and dirty presentation. Now what I want to do is ask, does anybody have any questions? This is me, I'll just leave this up here. Not like you can't see me, but anyway. Does anybody have any questions about latency in general or thinking about the way that latency impacts the video experience? You're thinking lunch, I can feel it. Oh, I'm supposed to make a plug, that's right. Shameless plug for go to the Limelight booth table thing in the lunchroom and put your business card in the bowl for a chance to win a really cool pair of green Dr. Dre Beats. Awesome, because with great video quality comes great audio quality. Wasn't that what I was supposed to say, something like that? All right, well, if we don't have any questions then, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. My contact information is there. If you ever have any questions, just ping me on Twitter or send an email to me. But other than that, thank you very much and have a great lunch.